don't count on universal basic income to save you if you lose your job because of AI or robots.
Some groups of people, they're looking at, national UBI is the only way. And some people are even looking at a global UBI. I don't see that as remotely feasible anytime soon. Maybe in 30 to 50 years, but certainly not not in time for it to matter in 3 to 5 years when people start losing their jobs. So yes, it is a big, big, big problem. And I'm talking to as many people as I can and doing as much research as I can to come up with those interventions.
That was basically the message from David Shapiro when I interviewed him to my Mindblowers podcast. If you want to see the full interview on the Mindblowers channel, there's a link in the description. So what is universal basic income, also called UBI? Well, basically it's a no strings attached payment you would get just for being a citizen of a country. So it wouldn't matter if you had other income or how you spent your time. You would just get this amount every month just for being a citizen of a country. And why would we need such a UBI? Well, the idea behind UBI is that if all jobs more or less are automated away by advanced artificial intelligence and robots, then, what are you humans going to do? They will lose their jobs as they will no longer be able to earn a salary simply because AI and robots would be able to do everything we could do faster, safer, and cheaper than what we can. David Shapiro elaborates a bit more on the issue. Let's see the clip here.
So we're already seeing reduced needs for headcount in certain jobs and in certain industries, but that's just with the chatbot form factor. One mistake that many people make is assuming that the chatbot form factor that's all we have from here on out. But there's new form factors for every technology. Just in the same way that when the steam engine was invented, for literally the first 100 years, the steam engine was static. It was not obvious to put it on a train or a boat. They were used as static power plants to help run factories for the first century. Things are moving a little bit faster today. So the next form factor for AI is the computer using agent. So that's a fully autonomous version of a chatbot that has access to the internet and tools and bank accounts and those sorts of things. And just this year, we're seeing the first commercial versions of these coming out. So that's like the baby version of a fully autonomous AI agent. And then the next form factor after that, we already know, is the humanoid robot, which takes that level of autonomy and intelligence, and instead of keeping it on cyberspace, you put it out in the physical world. So those take time to ramp up. Those technologies are being developed as we speak, but they're already adding value, and we're nowhere near the ceiling of what is possible. So in that respect, yes, it will take some time to develop the technologies. And then even once you have product market fit, it'll take some time to drive adoption.
So what I personally imagine is that we'll not see that much automation from AI in the next 2-3 years. But then it will be a little bit like a ketchup bottle. You shake it and suddenly, all of it comes out almost at once, at least for certain industries. Because what I envision is that agents will become so powerful and so safe that we can rely on them to do quite complex work, acting as an IT manager, for example, that would make a lot of knowledge workers redundant. And if we try to take a look at this graph over here, what I expect is that first we'll have a wave where AI will become more impactful and automate a lot of jobs away. Then a bit later, with about 5-year delay, we will see humanoid advanced robots also automating more and more jobs away. So I do expect these developments to happen too soon for people to be able to adjust. So I'm not saying they're going to do nothing, but they may not be able to pivot to even better roles. Let's hear David Shapiro's take on this.
Okay, well, I lost my high-paying job, so let me take a lower-paying job. One of the big risks is downward social mobility. And so that's one of the things that all the thought leaders and brain trust looking at this are talking about is you're not going to necessarily see all of the data reflected honestly or completely in unemployment numbers. because that, looking at an aggregate, oh, we're at 4.6% unemployment. Well, what percentage of those people are underemployed based on where they used to be? What percentage of those people are accepting a lower wage or standard of living because they had to, right? And it's the age-old story lately is, someone goes to grad school and then they end up working at a coffee shop, right? I think it's like 13% to 20% of grad students are significantly underemployed, still, in blue collar or pink collar jobs rather than white collar jobs.
Some will probably have to take some form of work, maybe in the meeting economy, such as like doing YouTube videos, but they will not be able to sustain themselves on that income. And then later, I actually think that humans will find a way to spend their time in a meaningful way and earn money once we're able to adjust. But that's a discussion for another time. In those turbulent years that I expect to be around 2029 to maybe 2036, where we're still adjusting to this massive change that especially AI, but to some extent robotics will bring to us in that period. Those years will be turbulent and we'll need something to fall back on. And I think a lot of people hope that could be UBI. And I'm here to tell you, you need another plan. I don't think it's happening. I agree with what David Shapiro is saying. So are we sure that this is how the scenario is going to unfold? No, we are not. It may actually be that humans can transition quicker, but we are already seeing signs that the job market is changing. And at entry level, for example, it is getting much more difficult to get into tech. And we are seeing early signs that young people are deciding to educate themselves into being able to fill jobs where there's less competition from AI. So that could be more manual labor jobs. But we'll see exactly how this is going to unfold. So if this really happens and we see unemployment of 15 to 30%, what would the solution be? This is where the problem comes in, right? Because I don't think there's a solution being worked on right now, or at least it's not being discussed openly. The Trump administration so far has just said, he'll make sure that AI will not take jobs away. I'm not so sure that is in his power to make that happen, to be honest. But let's try and unpack why it is that David Shapiro and I do not believe that UBI will come in and save you if you lose your job in the next 5 years. So let's try and unpack it. One side of the equation would, of course, be the tax income. So what happens to the tax income if we certainly see an unemployment level of 25%? There are actually different factors to look at here. But one thing is for certain, right? The federal state will not get the income they're used to. Okay, so in a situation where AI and robotics automate so many jobs away that unemployment would rise to 25%, say in the early 2030s, is obviously a quite extreme situation. And there are so many parameters that are difficult to estimate on how society would actually look. But this is what I'll try to do now. So there will be an impact on taxes. So, for example, American taxes are split into federal, state, and local taxes. Okay, so looking at the federal income, it's quite clear that the main tax are actually related to jobs, people working and paying tax, and also the companies paying social security tax on behalf of the workers. So if people start losing their jobs, we need to rework the tax system because the state will no longer be able to depend on most of the taxes coming from jobs. It could look something like we're seeing on this chart now. What we're seeing on this chart is how the federal government will be less reliant on taxes from income, but will have to rely more on other types of taxes, such as, for example, corporate taxes. So in a world with a lot of automation, corporations are likely to make more money as they spend less on salaries, so they will rely more on the corporate tax. They would rely more on the capital gains tax, so people investing in stocks and selling them at a gain, or for example, dividends. But this will be a transition over time, and maybe in 2050, the tax from salaries will be less than 20% of the budget, if this is how the development is. Let's imagine a scenario where automation from advanced AI is really, really quick. People are not able to catch up and find new employment. So almost, let's say, 20 to 25% are made redundant and unemployed and cannot find a new job. Like, how would they then get by, and could they rely on UBI as a solution? Now, let's try and get into the numbers. So currently, the federal tax income is about $4.9 trillion. And what would happen if about 25% of knowledge workers became unemployed? Well, we would definitely see a decrease in payroll taxes and individual income tax. But we'll probably at the same time see some positive dynamic effects, like increase in the corporate tax alone because of more profits, but maybe also as a result of increasing tax rates on corporate. It would not be enough to substitute the loss on the income tax, at least not if quite drastic measures were not used. The federal budget would actually have to shrink a little less than $1 trillion because the loss would be about $800 billion if we have 25% unemployment. Let's just have a look at the federal spending. So where do the government actually spend money at the moment? And would there be savings in a society with very advanced AI and more emerging advanced robotics? And of course, there could be savings. There could be savings on medical expenses. You could see hospitals using AI more, also needing less people. You could see the government and the administration needing less people, so they would also therefore spend less money on administration. We could see maybe leaner education, as more could be done online with virtual reality. There could be more AI teachers and so forth. So the government could also save money as part of this automation. If we look at this split here, that would actually mean so the government would spend more money on income security, simply paying some form of welfare benefit to people who are not employed. They would probably need to have more lenient rules than today, where you can only have 6 months of unemployment benefit. If we are seeing a whole class of people having huge challenges getting into the job market, more financial support would most likely be needed to keep these people off the streets. But it actually looks realistic that the savings in the other areas because of automation could make up for the added expense for social security. But here's the challenge. In the USA, there's already a budget deficit. If we're in a situation where there are $800 billion less in tax revenue, but the same spending, there would be a huge gap. And the challenge is there's already quite a big gap. There's already a gap of almost $2 trillion in budget deficit, and we're seeing how interest rates are becoming more and more a problem for the government to balance the budget. This is why I would say, forget UBI at this point. It's not happening as I see it, and as David Shapiro sees it in the next 5-10 years. Simply because, well, not all jobs will be automated away. So a UBI where everybody would get something would not be needed. And also, since there's such a big gap on the budget that might be increasing due to higher unemployment, it would be impossible to fit the cost of a UBI in there. So let's just talk about what would a UBI actually cost. So first of all, many define UBI as everybody getting the benefit, but I think at least in the beginning, it would probably be adults. So retirees would probably be unchanged in terms of what they would be getting in terms of benefits and pension. And there would probably be no UBI from 0 to 18 years. That would still leave about 205 million Americans that would then be receiving the UBI. So let's imagine a UBI of $1,000 a month. Again, I think we can all agree that that would not be enough to live on for most families. So even if you're two, that's $24,000 a year. And in many states, that would be very, very difficult to get by on. But the cost would be almost about 2.5 trillion. And if we try to fit that in to the budget, obviously, you could reduce some other areas like welfare and social security because you are now giving a broad UBI to everyone. But it's still clear that the total expenditure for the government would increase quite significantly, perhaps with about 2 trillion more dollars. And there's just no way to find that extra money in the current situation. So that's it for this time. My main conclusion is don't count on UBI. Maybe try to make your own UBI if you have any chances of doing so, saving up and investing, or starting a side hustle that you don't think will be automated by AI in the next 5 to 10 years. However, on my next video, I will talk about the road to potential UBI, and also I think we should explore other options than just the government actually financing the UBI. There could be other options. So we'll look into that on the next video. But let me know, what do you think? Is it important we get UBI? Are you in favor of UBI? Or do you think it's basically just a pipe dream? Thank you for listening.